Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Stephen Marcellino, Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric. And just a little background on Lapolis. We are a full-service electrical construction company that focuses on residential service, emergency service, energy efficiency, commercial construction services, and engineered services / electrical preventative maintenance. And I'm here today with President and Owner Charlie Deputhod. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Really
Perfect.
Good.
Nailed it. Usually I wouldn't say that on an introduction, but Charlie's last name always stumps me, so I figured it would be funny. And he is the President and Owner of INF Associates. Charlie, thank you for coming in today and being on this episode with us, the Beyond the Blueprint podcast.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here and so impressed with what you're doing, Stephen. You've been a great person to work with over the years since we've known you and Lapolis, and really appreciate Carmine and Paul's support as well. But great to be here with you today.
Yeah, I know you, Carmine, and Paul, have a great relationship with each other, and I appreciate all your support and embracing what I have to offer, at the table as well. And I think it's a really symbiotic relationship, and we really value those relationships in the industry, from all angles, because at the end of the day, that's what we have. When it comes down to it in business, we have each other, and it's important to make sure that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. And that being said, Charlie, you have a really interesting story, I think. I know a lot about you. We've talked a lot. We've had a lot of good laughs with each other. And, I want you to tell the listeners kind of where you came from in the industry to where you are now, and I guess your path of entrepreneurship, so to speak. So I'm going to turn it over to you and, give it to us from day one to August 29th, 2024.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to take you all the way back to where I was born. I was born in the south of France in Montpellier. I lived there for the first year of my life. I moved to Colorado Springs when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And lived in Colorado until I was 10, and then moved to New York. My mom was an artist for Marvel Comics, so she did a lot of coloring for the Punisher magazine.
Oh, wow.
So growing up as a kid, it was really cool. I got to have a lot of Punisher comic books there.
That's awesome.
It was really, really interesting. So, we moved to New York when I was 10. I started working really hard when I was 14. I worked at a local farm market, believe it or not, and then, had a job at a Gap distribution center, driving around forklifts, and I also worked at a Friendly's ice cream spot. Those are my 3 jobs. And the farm market, I was there for probably 8-9 years. I stayed there until I was probably about 20, 21 years old. Had a lot of apple picking and all that stuff, so got really busy in the fall and then calmed down, in the winter time and all of that. But it was good times. And then, I worked for a company, Thermotest, that did predictive maintenance, infrared scanning, very similar to your background.
I know who they are.
And
We might have to bleep that part of the episode out.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
And, I worked there for about 12 years, and I really started as a technician, got into business development, helped that company grow. Wow. And Greg Scollin was one of the mentors of mine. And then I started INF when I was 30 years old. And it all started from another mentor. It was Vinny Petta. He was a customer of mine. He worked for the Trinity portfolio down in Canal Street in the city. And he said to me, Charlie, there's billions of light bulbs out there. With all the people and all the relationships you got to get into this space of energy efficiency. And I didn't know anything about lighting at that time, nothing at all. So, we were sitting down having some dinner and incorporated INF the next morning. And that's kind of how we got started. And I was 30 years old when I started. I've been at it now for 15 years. And, we've grown a lot. INF, what we offer to our customers is we do energy retrofits. We also do a lot of building decarbonization work. That's how we started. And then about 8 years ago, I got into a Tesla. I had some time to kill on 14th Street in Manhattan, and I drove a Model S down the West Side Highway, and I said, this is the future. It reminded me of the Jetsons when I was a kid. So next thing you know, I jumped in that Tesla, and I never looked back. I said, this is the future. I really believe in the electric vehicles, and I think that, as battery technology improves, I think it's going to just make sense, right? It's got to get away from the Democrat-Republican fight right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people view it, and I really just want it to make sense and focus on that. So it's a big part of our business now. We're really helping a lot of our customers install electric vehicle charging stations, and we're working with a lot of fleets to electrify their vehicles, including the studies and doing all the turnkey work. There's a lot of rebates and grants out there. And then day two, we stay with our customers long term, and we maintain the charging stations as well. So we're brand agnostic, and located here in New York, but we're busy all over the country. We're active in about 26 states.
You guys are all over the place.
Yeah, and just got an amazing team based out of New York and staff around the country, and they just doing some big things.
Yeah, definitely. And my experience with your team, it's like dealing with family. Anytime you walk into the office, everyone's happy to see you, high five and hugging, and there's obviously the business aspect to it, but I think you have a great culture at INF as well, and I think that translates into the the end user's experience. I can only imagine that if you have someone like, I'll speak like Chris, because Chris and I have a really good relationship.
Yep.
Someone like Chris managing one of your clients' expectations, that client's going to be happy because aside from his knowledge in the industry, his experience as well with hospitality in general, when you talk to Chris, you feel like you're talking to someone you've known for 20 years. You know what I mean? And same thing with Joe and Ayana, and your entire team is just great over there in your office, and I'm sure you're blessed to have a team like you have at INF.
Absolutely. They make the company what it is today. I just got a tremendous team. We got a tremendous leadership team at INF, and just, everybody, the culture is so important,
Yeah.
And, it's been a pleasure to work with our entire team. We really started INF very family-oriented, right? I had amazing customer retention. Nobody left. It was like family. Everybody enjoyed coming to work on Monday, and that's how I want to keep INF running, as we grow and as we get bigger. So it's really awesome. Important to me to have that family culture. And, we also, do a lot of things for our staff, and then they work very hard for us as well. So
that's awesome.
We're all aligned. It's been great.
That's great. Take us through, what that customer experience looks like. What are the different type of service offerings you have at INF that people, because you just gave us the 1,000-foot view. What are some of like the, to date service offerings that you have that people should be aware of, whether they're, looking to get into sustainability or put a car charger in, at their office or home? What can you do to help people get to that next level of energy efficiency and sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. We look at ourselves as a subject matter expert. So we start a lot of our work with consulting, whether it's a facility grade lighting audit, or we look at an entire building of their mechanical systems, their electrical systems, and we look at all of their assets, and we find out if there's different technology, innovative technology that can replace that to make it more energy efficient, which in result saves them money on the building decarbonization, building retrofit side. And then from that study, there's a lot of cost share from both, NYSERDA or other utility or state programs. So we find money to offset the capital costs just for the original study. And then that kind of helps them with their energy master plan. So our goal is to get people off fossil fuels and really just, decarbonization in general. So we're really just focused on doing the turnkey work and helping our customers through that path.
Very interesting. And I guess, so to speak, what is your vision over the course of the next 5 years? I know there's a lot of local laws that are about to kind of come into play for New York City in terms of, energy audit and overall, how many LED fixtures you need to have in the building. And, I know I speak with you a lot about it, or I speak with Chris a lot about it, how we can help these buildings with these local laws that are coming up. And why don't you speak a little bit about that? What is your team's, I guess, function in helping buildings be compliant with a local law 88, where they need to have all LED fixtures in a building, or, they need to have energy audits done? Where can INF come in and assist with that, in terms of making these buildings compliant with the different laws that are coming into play?
Yeah, great question. We really start with that, assessment of the building, helping them with an energy master plan, and then we kind of focus and prioritize projects based on what capital they have available. Some of our customers struggle with having the capital available. Coming out of COVID, commercial real estate's really hurting on occupying buildings.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of different, incentive programs, grants, or energy as a service. There's companies that we work for and do construction for that will actually own the assets, and they'll pay for all the capital costs to, to move the projects forward. So
Gotcha.
we do a lot of that as well. And on the EV side, the same thing. A lot of these commercial buildings, there's a lot of charge point operators that are looking to build up infrastructure to get ready for all the Ubers and Lyfts and all the mandates of all this electrification of transportation. So what we're doing is we're introducing our commercial clients or other clients to new revenue streams, right, for leasing out their parking garage to turn it into potentially a charging hub or anything like that. So we're just really, we're different from the rest of the industry because we do consulting, we do construction, but we also work with a lot of fleet operators and such, so we can bring tenants to buildings.
For people that may be listening and, your approach is a lot more of the approval, consulting, the maintenance, how kind of give the listeners a picture of how somebody like Lepolis would work in tandem and partnership with you to make their vision come to life so they could better understand, kind of how the whole project gets developed from consulting to actual implementation of the equipment.
Yeah. Great point. So Lepolis has been one of our preferred electrical contractors that we work with all the time. Teams just really worked really well with my team and very cost competitive and everything. So what we do there is in-house, we have electrical engineers that do all the design. We have rebate people who go through the process of submitting all the rebates and grants. We get our customers' commitment to move forward with the project, and then that's when we go out for a competitive bid to all of our electrical contractors. We've built such a good relationship with Lepolis that, a lot of times they'll come in and just do all the electrical work, including conduit, trenching, pulling the wire, installing the charging stations. And we oversee your team with our own construction managers and project managers, as you know. And then basically what we do is when we do the commissioning, so commissioning and onboarding of the charging stations, setting the sequence of operation of all these charging stations are network controlled. So they're similar to like a building management system. So there's pricing policies. Some people monetize their charging stations. Some fleets just want us to, give them times of use of when they should be charging their vehicles because of demand charges. So we really come in and just stay with our customer, all the way through, and then we maintain the charging stations as well. And that's usually a preventive maintenance that happens annually. And then we have emergency services where we roll trucks and actually go in and repair the charging stations for
Very
emergency
interesting.
services.
Preventative maintenance, that's a kind of sweet topic for me right there, as my function with Lepolis being on the, preventative maintenance and engineered services side. Take us through, what does a preventative maintenance program look like for a car charger opposed to, well, I guess you can't really say opposed to the electrical infrastructure because you have infrastructure powering the chargers, switch gears, transformers, etc. So what does, preventative maintenance look like on these car chargers to make sure over time, similar to, the building power supply, that the charger power supply and the charger itself doesn't fail on the end user?
Yep. Absolutely. So we typically start our preventive maintenance by doing lockout, tag out, shutting off the circuit breaker, disconnect, local disconnect. There's a lot of codes around that. Obviously we put safety first with all of our technicians. After the lockout, tag out's done, we open up the charging station, and we're brand agnostic. So we work with all the leading manufacturers, and all of our technicians get certified to work on the manufacturers that we support. So our technicians, prior to visiting the site, they go through a certification process. They get certified to work on the charging stations, and then after lockout tag out, they open up the stations, tighten up all the connections. Some other really key important things about charging stations is the uptime, right? There's a lot of negativity in this space right now with you can connect to Wi-Fi or cell signal. So a lot of times we're actually looking at that as well. So we're checking the cell signal or the Wi-Fi signal while on site, and then sometimes we have to put in wireless access points for improving Wi-Fi, or a cell booster for cell connectivity. So we're kind of really analyzing that as well.
Very interesting.
And then we turn back on the charging station and just make sure that the KW set to where we want the charger set to, and inspect the plug. We like to obviously clean the charging station, and we have a detailed report that gets sent back to the building with our recommendations and corrective actions.
Yeah, and I can only imagine. I mean, obviously I deal every day with, overcoming objection to why preventative maintenance is important, but for car chargers, and I think you would agree, if you're not maintaining these chargers, and there's this whole battle of gas versus electric, and if the car charging infrastructure doesn't stay maintained on the frequency that it needs to be maintained, and the charging stations start breaking down because of lack of maintenance, then this whole ideology of car chargers kind of goes out the window. It's extremely important in my eyes for the consumers to have one of your maintenance programs or a maintenance program in place to make sure that these charging stations remain operable, safe, and ultimately efficient, to make sure people can charge their cars to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. And utilization and demand is what really drives that. A lot of our customers, whether it's a fleet or multifamily, fleet charging especially, I mean, that's a given to put a maintenance contract in because, you need the uptime of your fleet to operate, right? So it's super critical for fleet operators to sign our preventive maintenance and emergency services. Some of these multifamily buildings that we're installing, they might not have EV vehicles in there. So sometimes we advise those customers, let's look at the data, because we have a charging success program where we look at all the charging history for the month with our customer, and we help them through it to make sure that it's providing the value that they were looking for in their complex. So some of those things, a lot of the state incentives and programs are geared towards, if you build it, they will come. So when we install charging stations, when there's no electric vehicle charging vehicles at the site, a lot of them actually start to buy electric vehicles because they're confident they have a place to charge.
100%.
So we've been seeing a lot of growth in the market from installing at multifamily residents that didn't have charging stations, and it's been a great.
That's actually really interesting ideology because, especially in New York City, there's not an overwhelming amount of car chargers nor gas stations either. It's kind of like, if you're in the city, you better make sure, whether you're in a gas-powered vehicle or a battery-powered car, your tank is full or your battery's full, because you could get stuck somewhere. The nearest station is, a couple miles, a few miles away, and the price to fill up is probably much higher than, charging your vehicle, so to speak, in that scenario. But I think having an initiative to install these chargers in the multifamily zones or, in the big apartment towers, if there's a parking garage or a lot out front, it's really going to incentivize the homeowners, apartment owners, condo owners to move towards an energy efficient life solely based off of convenience.
Absolutely.
If I could wake up in the morning and just, pop a plug into my car and, charge it up before I go to sleep, whatever it is, and the building's providing that, I guess, amenity to me, what's the downside at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it draws a lot of different, residents to a multifamily as well. So you're exactly right. They're looking at it right now as an amenity. As we move forward to electrification of transportation, it'll become a necessity, right? So you're really gonna need charging stations at all multifamily sites. A lot of it's becoming code compliancy too now. So when you're building a new structure and you have a parking garage, X amount of those parking spaces need to have at least a make-ready or electric vehicle charging stations installed day one. So that's really driving the market as well.
Very interesting.
It's different per state or, per township.
On the preventative maintenance side, to backtrack a little, I was going to ask a question, but then I got sidetracked with the convenience factor of having chargers at home. Is there any kind of governing code or some type of standard that people should be following to make sure that everything's being maintained, or would car chargers fall under the same kind of maintenance book, like an NFPA 70B for the maintenance and NFPA 70E for the safety?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if there's an NFPA code yet for charging stations, but I'm sure there will be. I think a lot of this is just, if there's utilization and demand, it kind of makes sense to do the charging maintenance. And a lot of that's been really happening from, the manufacturer's recommendation
100%.
and a lot of our recommendation as well.
Yeah, because it's interesting, now that you have that whole side of the industry developing, because car chargers are more or less more of a new boom, so to speak, in our industry. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how NFPA gets involved and, NETA gets involved and all these kinds of different testing and maintenance standards to make sure that the charging stations are properly maintained. I would imagine that, like, if there's any switchgear breakers or transformers associated, that part of the infrastructure would probably fall under the NFPA or the NETA standard for testing. I can only
absolutely.
imagine, right?
Yeah. And a lot of the fast chargers, you have 480 volt power for the level 3 charging stations. So a lot of that is switchgear. It's usually isolated load. And, you have big power cabinets, for the level 3 stuff as well. So the maintenance is a lot more intense, a lot more moving parts, and a lot more to do, right? So it's a lot different than, your standard level 2 charging station.
Definitely. Are there any, for anybody listening right now that may be interested in installing a station or, maybe doing some kind of LED retrofit, because I know you guys get involved with that as well on the lighting side, is there any incentives out there that people should be aware of, maybe if they're having a funding problem or forecast a funding problem to do these projects that they should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's still a lot of incentive with, local here, the Con Ed or the Orange and Rockland program. New Jersey's full of incentives. All 6 utilities in New York State have incentives for electric vehicle charging to bring down the cost. That's all for the infrastructure. So that includes pipe, wire, installation, you name it, switch gear. And then there's also incentives for the hardware. So, NYSERDA has a good program right now for hardware as well.
That's important for people to know, because I think, people think about car chargers or, whatever the scenario may be, that they're looking to do these energy efficient upgrades, and all they think about is like, what's this going to cost me? And then you bring an expert like yourself in that can actually help people out offsetting those costs and getting their facilities up to a energy efficient standard. So that's very important and very interesting. Let me ask, we're winding down a little bit here on the episode, but for younger entrepreneurs or people that are looking to break into industry, not even necessarily our industry, what's like the one key piece of advice you could give someone that's looking to kind of get into their own business endeavor to to grow their own business?
Yeah, great question. I think, what prevents people from starting their businesses is the upfront, feeling of, wow, this is too much risk, or how am I going to do this, right? You got to just jump all in and go for it. If you believe in something, there's a couple things in my path, in my journey, and every CEO or somebody who starts a business, entrepreneur is different, and they have a different story. Mine was, I really believed in the market. I loved innovative technology, passionate about what I was doing. And then I also got lucky. It's a lot of luck too. It's the people you meet along the way, right? Along the journey. I think that's really important. And then, just really doing what you say you're going to do, right? So, reputation is just really big, and especially in our industry, and doing good quality work and being, really good at what you do. So that, I think it's really just that the biggest factor is that risk factor, just getting someone to just go all in and do this, right? When I started INF, I had another job. I had a full-time job, so I was kind of doing on the side. I was showing up to, meetings in a suit, and then in the afternoon I was doing meetings to go and generate business for INF. And the owner of that company knew what I was doing, and he was aligned, but it was a lot of work. You put in a lot of work. And when I started INF, I was actually doing my own audits, so I knew every piece of my business. So get really familiar with every part of your business from start to finish. I knew about every single project, and it's your life. You live, eat, breathe it. So it's just you got to have passion, you got to have drive, and you got to go all in.
Passion's extremely important. That's a major driving force behind any business is passion. Who wants to wake up and do something every day if they don't love it? You know
exactly
what I mean?
Right.
And for me too, on my side, passion is what drives me to, to wake up and do what I do every day for Lapolis Electric, for my customers. This podcast is, it's awesome. I have a lot of fun sitting with guys like yourself and all the other men and women that have been on, and it makes it fun. You have to find a way to make it fun and make every day different. I think that's extremely important. So, Charlie, I want to thank you for coming on the episode today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great time.
Thank you very much. And, this was very fun, very good time. And it's always a pleasure to sit with you and talk. So, again, thank you for coming on the episode. And thank you, everybody, for watching another episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Stephen Marcellino. Have a great day.